Cross-site scripting is a type of vulnerabilities that allow us to inject JavaScript code in the pages of the target website. Now, JavaScript, forget about hacking, forget about exploiting. JavaScript is a language that gets interpreted and executed by the browser. So it's a client-side language. What we mean by that is the JavaScript code does not get executed on the server. It's only executed on the client web browser. This is very important because a lot of vulnerabilities that we cover, like the code execution, like SQL injections, they get interpreted and executed by the server. Therefore, we can directly use them to hack into the target server. Whereas XSS vulnerabilities allow us to inject JavaScript, which gets executed by the web browser. That means it gets executed on the client, on the user that actually loads the vulnerable page. And therefore, we can't directly use it to gain access to the website. But we know that usually the admin of a website, the owners, always look at their website and use it. And therefore, we can use XSS to steal their cookies or steal their information, or even lure them and get them to do something that will allow us to gain access to their computer, and from there gain access to their website if the website was the target. So there is 3 types of XSS vulnerabilities. There is the stored ones, or persistent, reflected, and DOM-based. The impact of all of them is always the same. The only difference is in the reflected XSS, you will have to send the exploit itself. You'll have to send this link, for example. We're assuming target.com is our target, page.php is the vulnerable page, and this is our exploit code. So this is the code that will be injected in the loaded page and will be executed. So you will have to send all of this to the target and wait for them to execute it. That's why it's called reflected, because it's reflected on the browser that executes the URL, the link. Now, this is still not very suspicious because we're assuming that target.com is a popular website, for example, google.com. So you're sending a trusted website to the target. Therefore, they are likely to load it. And when they load it, you will get the code that you have in here to be executed. The other main example of XSS is the stored XSS vulnerabilities. These are really good because the code that you inject in the page will be stored. Therefore, you will not have to interact with the user. The user will go willingly and load a vulnerable page, and when they load this vulnerable page, the code will be executed on their browser. But the idea is, with the stored, the code is stored in the page, so you don't need to communicate with the target. So for example, if you discover a stored XSS in Google, the code will be executed on every browser that visits Google. Whereas if it's reflected, you will still need to get your target to actually click the link that contains the code. So we have reflected, stored, and DOM is the third variant of XSS vulnerabilities. The only difference is there is no communication between the client and the web server when we exploit such vulnerabilities. Therefore, nothing is going to be stored on the server side. There is no logs to show that this has been exploited. If you have server-side filters, they're not really going to work because, again, nothing is sent to the server, and no server-side protection. Whether any kind of protection you have on the server side is useless because nothing is being sent to the server again. Now, in the next lectures, we'll cover a number of examples, and you'll notice that discovering and exploiting these vulnerabilities is very similar. The main difference is the way they occur in the background.